As a teacher, it is your job to ensure that each of your students understands the material that is being taught in the classroom. With 25 plus students in the average elementary school classroom, this can be a very difficult and frustrating task. Although one method may work for the majority of students in your class, other students may be confused or take longer to understand major concepts. It is your job to make sure that every child has the opportunity to learn and be successful in the classroom. One method commonly used by educators to do this is differentiation. Differentiation is the scaffolding of lessons in order to accommodate for a variety of levels and abilities in a single lesson. Let's take a look at a lesson plan designed for Mr. Smith's third grade class on the water cycle. This lesson begins with the teacher assessing the prior knowledge of his students. He asks them questions about what the water cycle is and what they know about the terms evaporation, precipitation, and condensation. The teacher proceeds by reading a book to the class about the water cycle. Then he has the students recite a chant and do a dance about the 3 stages of the water cycle that they learned about. After repeating the chant with the students and discussing what they learned in the book, he dismisses them to their seats to draw a picture of the water cycle on their own. While this lesson would work for the majority of students in his third grade class, Mr. Smith must take into account that some of his students have individualized needs. Johnny is one of Mr. Smith's brightest students, but he has some difficulty hearing and paying attention in class. Johnny has a hearing impairment and has a very difficult time following along in the classroom. To help Johnny succeed in this lesson, Mr. Smith uses a microphone when speaking in front of the class to make sure that Johnny can hear what is going on. He also provides Johnny with a written outline of what he is saying before the lesson starts. This allows Johnny to follow along easily with the rest of the class. Mr. Smith also makes sure that he is using expressive hand movements to help Johnny keep up with the class and follow along. When talking about rain, for example, Mr. Smith moves his hands to mimic rain falling. By making sure that his environment is loud enough to hear and making sure that Johnny can see the material that is being taught, Mr. Smith is able to help Johnny focus better and succeed in the classroom. Molly is another very bright student in Mr. Smith's class, but she has a hard time interacting with her peers and is often very overwhelmed with the idea of change. Molly has autism disorder. To help her in this lesson, Mr. Smith provides clear and concise directions. This helps Molly understand what she is supposed to be doing. Mr. Smith also makes sure that Molly has a copy of the schedule so that she knows what to expect during the day. Finally, Mr. Smith allows Molly to have extra time when drawing her picture of the water cycle. This way, Molly does not feel rushed or overwhelmed by the assignment. All of these simple adjustments allow for Molly to be successful in the classroom. Leroy is a very hard-working and outgoing student. He is very bright and always tries his best. Leroy has a physical impairment and cannot use his legs. Mr. Smith has to adjust the classroom to ensure that Leroy can easily move around the room. Not only does Mr. Smith have to make sure the desks are arranged appropriately, but he also has to make sure that the classroom is wheelchair accessible. For this lesson, there is a dance that goes with the chant. In order for Leroy to participate in the dance, Mr. Smith makes sure that there are arm movements that Leroy can partake in. All of these things help to ensure that Leroy is included in the classroom activities and is provided with the same opportunities as his peers. Anne is a very quiet student who struggles with social interactions. She does not talk very much and often seems very overwhelmed. Anne has an anxiety disorder. She is often overwhelmed by the idea of doing something wrong and has a very difficult time staying focused on her work when there is a lot of noise. In this lesson, Mr. Smith makes sure that Anne is sitting next to someone who can help her and that she is comfortable working with. This helps Anne feel comfortable during the lesson. He also provides Anne with a pair of headphones that she can put on while the class is drawing their own water cycle to help her focus and not become overwhelmed with the noise. Mr. Smith also gives Anne a copy of written instructions for the lesson so that she can see what she needs to do. This helps her not to worry about messing up as much. Each student in Mr. Smith's class required a specific set of accommodations and modifications to help them succeed during the lesson. By dividing the students' needs up, Mr. Smith used differentiation to help his students do the best they could. As a teacher, you will have to use differentiation in the classroom to help meet the individual needs of your students and turn frustration into success.